She sowed the seed and now we're in the harvest.
Amen.
So the seed that she sowed in us are now going international. Amen. The seed that she sowed in us are now ministering to a whole congregation in Jacksonville. The people that we trained up will also be her harvest. It's like the apple seed. How many apples really come from a seed? It produces and produces and produces and produces and produces. And when you get to heaven, Mama, you're going to look around and all these people you've never seen before are going to be a result of you not giving up. Amen. And I thank her for that. When I was 14 years old, we left the church and I was in sin from 14 to 21. And at 21 years old, I decided I had had enough. Now, I thought I was grown. I thought I had been through it all, but I didn't know anything at that point. So I decided to try to kill myself. And so I was coming down the road and, driving my car, and I was going to jump this semi-truck thing. And when I got to the semi-trailer, my steering wheel on its own turned, and I heard the Lord say, "Get to church." I immediately started crying. I immediately started repenting. Drove home. I went in. I'd been in Orlando that weekend, living my life. I went in. My mom was taking a nap, and I knocked on the door, and I said, "Mama, I'm home." She said, "Okay." I said, "Mom, I'm going to church tonight." "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home. I'm going back to where my roots are. I'm going back to where I grew up, where I was taught right from wrong." She said, "Okay." I said, "You go with me if you want to." She got up and she got dressed and we went to church that night. And I don't know if you remember, Mama, we drove all the way to church. I cried all the way to church. We get to church, we go in, I just sat there and cried and cried and cried. And that night, would you believe this? The youth pastor got up and preached a message. And when he took off his jacket, his message was entitled on the back of his shirt, "When you come to the end of your road, there is hope."
Amen.
Now don't tell me God doesn't make a mistake. Don't tell me that there are no such things as divine appointments.
Yes.
When you come to the end of your road, there is hope. I got saved that night, and I didn't meet my husband. I actually grew up with my husband. He lived one street over. He spent the night at the house with my brother, and I couldn't do it. I didn't like him. He flaunted my poodle dog with a baseball bat when we were young. I never forgave him for that. Kind of over it now, though. But he was there, and I hadn't seen him since graduation. I was living in Orlando, working in ICU, and had my own life going on. And so that night we began to date, and we started dating and everything. And then in 1995, we were deciding to get married. But that July we had a change in our pastoral appointment. And this lady, my mom called me to me and said, "You got to come and meet the new pastors," because, the former pastor's been there for like forever. And so I was like, "Oh, they're nice." She's like, "Oh, you're going to love her. They're from Kentucky, so are we, so, it's kind of like kindred spirit." So I got to church and, you can stay there. And this lady right here was there, and golly, that was in 95. Was it 95? No, it was in 94, actually. It was in 94. How many years is that? 14. And so, for 14 years, I've known Sister Harris. Her and her husband pastored us. And I want to tell you something. Through those times, man, did I ever throw up on her. I wanted to quit. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to do ministry. I didn't want to come to church. And every time she'd say, "Yes, you do. You're going to be fine." And we would go through something, and she would say, "This is only going to make you a better pastor's wife." And I would say, "I am not going to be a pastor's wife." Sister Rachel would say, "Yes, you are. You just don't know yet." "No, I'm not." And I would say, "Well, my kids will not." But she would, "Don't say that. Your kids will act like that." And I said, "No, my kids will not act like that at church." And then I had Brady. And, Brady strips me in church and walks down the middle aisle and goes to the truck that his dad was preaching and thinks he was one. And, we had to pin him up in a playpen. So my kids won't act like that. Yeah, right. So Billy and I got married. We got ready to get married, and Billy's dad was supposed to pay for the reception dinner or the rehearsal dinner. And we get to church that night to rehearse, and there's no dinner. And so I'm like, and Sister Harris and her husband went over to the parsonage and whipped up a big old pot of homemade spaghetti and garlic bread salad. They set the fellowship hall up, and we went in there and ate. Spiritual mothers. Amen. We are here today because when we first got married, Brother Harris and Sister Harris pushed us to the point we were sick of being pushed. Worked until we couldn't work no more. All that time, and I didn't understand why she would do some stuff that she did, but it was training. I was watching from the back of behind her. I would watch, and I said, There's things that she does in her ministry that I don't do. I don't get up at 5 o'clock and let people come over for coffee. She likes that. I know. Don't come to my house before 11. Because I'm not nice. But she's like that, and I watched her. She's got children that she's raised that are serving God, and Brother Harris, her husband, our pastor, back, when we first got married, he is the one that went to the state bishop and said, you need to use Ken and Billy. You need to use them. They're ready. So we got a call, and here we are today because they pushed us into the mission. Where are the spiritual mothers? Who are you pushing? When an eagle is born and it's time for the eagle to leave the nest, the mother pushes the eagle out. Amen? And I thank her for being here. I call her all the time, only when I want to quit. If she had it all for every time I called and said, I believe we're quitting, we're calling the host here, we're resigning, and she's like, no, don't do that, you don't mean that. And here we are, we're still here. My mother-in-law is not here today, and she may be watching by the internet, but when I married my husband, I took on another mother, and that's my mother-in-law, Mary. And she is a praying woman, and I work in her church. And we give her a hard time, don't we, Candy? Don't drag me. Mary, she said don't drag her into it. Well, we won't go there, but we love her. We really do deep down inside. We do love her. We really do. We take good care of her. And then we moved to Jacksonville. And I left my mom and then they got moved, and I took on my sister-in-law's parents became our pastor, and she became a spiritual mother to us and nurtured us and showed us how to act and showed us how to dress and showed us how to behave. Amen? Amen. And then we moved to Jacksonville. We went through, the first 2 years we were here. And I thought I was going to die. But before I left home, it was prophesied over me that I would leave my family, but God would replace family members to me, that whatever I gave up, God would restore to me. And so we moved to Jacksonville with absolutely nobody. No family, no nothing, no one. And I was working at a Christian school in Jacksonville, and there was this woman that sat down at the desk, at the concierge desk. And I would walk by her, and at first I was kind of like, I wasn't familiar with that spirit. I kind of was like, whoa, I'm afraid she'll read my mail. I was real good at hiding stuff at that point, because I was hurting. I was hurting, Pastor, and I didn't want no one to know how bad I was hurting. And so one day I came into contact with her, and from the point of contact, it was a divine connection. Amen. And I called Sister Harris in December of 2005, and we said, we're resigning, we're leaving. We've been here for 6 months, and we were like, we're out. So we called, because it was New Year's Eve, and we thought we were big and bad, and we called over here while he wasn't at the office, just leave a message. We quit. You'll get it next week. So we called, we're real big and bad. And we called and said, we need to talk. We think we need to change. And so he called the next week and he said, can you do me a favor? Can you wait until I can find you another place? He said, the only thing I have now is a French church. We don't speak French. Y'all have them from the South, okay, or a black church, and my message will take that one. And so he said, well, can you just wait there until I find you a place to go? And we're like, well, we're not quitters. We're not quitting. We're not giving up. We just picked up personality conflicts. So we waited. That week I went to school, and I walked by this desk, and the Lord said, tell her that you want her to come and speak at your church. And as I passed by, I looked at her and I said, will you please come and speak at our church? She said, oh, baby, I want to speak. And I said, but you have such a powerful ministry. Please come and speak at our church. I had to pray about that thing. When she come back, she said she was inviting everybody from the school. And, you know, our church only had about 80 people at the time. And so we went to church and we told everybody. We had 15 people, y'all. It's going to be packed out in here Sunday morning. It's going to be packed. We're going to need chairs. We're like, yeah, whatever. You know, they didn't like it. And we're like, no, really, we're not like it. There's going to be like more people than what we have room for. Y'all need to come and help us clean. And we need to get chairs. We need to prepare. There's going to be over 100 people. You know, whatever. 15 people. So Sunday morning came, and I was up at the keyboard button, and the door opened, and it stayed open. We had over 125 people that morning. Came, and right in the middle of trying to preach, she said, I can't do it anymore. Can I just be who I am? And she laid the microphone down and she started calling them out one by one, and people were being healed. There was a man there that testified that he had been to every crusade in this world, been in, and everybody else trying to get healed of hepatitis C. He was healed that morning in our church. And came back and testified about it. And Mama began to do her work, and she came, and I can't say the name, but she was attending at the time a really big church here in Jacksonville. Really, really, really big. And then she came to a really, really, really small church. But all of a sudden, God began to melt her heart, and she fell in love with me.